Hi everyone, this is Claire.
This is Kenneth.
We actually decided to, come up with some of the usual things that we share with our clients. Today, this series is really more about HDB. We do get questions about HDB buyers, whether they should actually look into BTO or resale HDB purchase. Both has got its pros and cons definitely, but we're going to share with you 4 important questions to go into, whether choosing a BTO is the correct route to go to or whether is it resale HDB.
Actually, I think it's a very common question that people have in mind. BTO, we feel that it's always the safest option that buyers have in the market in terms of the price point of view. These 4 questions we feel really are questions that you as a buyer, you probably would need to ask yourself, and from there, you'll be able to determine whether or not BTO would be something that would suit you.
Going down to the first question, typically the first question is, of course, definitely on the eligibility side. Eligibility, we are covering whether are you today a first-timer or a second-timer. For first-timer, definitely your chances of getting a BTO will be significantly higher than comparing to somebody who actually already had a BTO HDB prior. So definitely you'll fall into the second-timer category. So this would generally means that it's a harder chance to get another BTO per se, right? If that could be the scenario whereby you are in, then perhaps it's time to really consider the resale HDB instead. In terms of eligibility wise, we also need to check whether are you a single buyer or if you are a married couple, for example. Why is this important is because for single, you also need to look into what kind of BTO you are able to get. For right now, with the HDB policies in place for single or purchaser, you're only allowed to get like 2-room flexi BTO as opposed to married couples. So of course, you are able to go into larger unit flats as well. We also need to look into the income ceiling as well. So for singles, by now you all should know already, for singles, there's an income ceiling cap at $7,000. $7,000 to buy a 2-room flexi. I'm not sure whether if this is something that might be hindering you guys. So if that's could be the case. We do have a lot of single buyers outside that we have been serving of late. We did do the roadmap and all, and then we realized that, actually it might be a wiser choice if you're going into the resale route instead, right?
Which is why this is our number 1 question always when people ask us whether or not a BTO or resale works better for them, the eligibility. Right. So if your income, for example, it really exceeds the income cap, then of course we won't have to discuss about this.
So that's number 1. Number 2, definitely we are asking about your age as well. The age is of course very sensitive, but we are not talking about what is the current age. It's not just only that. It's actually more about how upon MOP, which will be at least 5 years down the road, if you are looking at BTO, that you need to consider also the building time. Right now, BTO with the shorter waiting time building, it will also take about 2-3 years. So after another 5 years of meeting the MOP, by then it's about 7 to 8 years already. So you might want to consider if today, for example, you are at 30 years old, 8 years down the road, perhaps then you are only allowed to sell. You'll be 38 years old by then. This could be one of the potential thing that you have to take note at the back of your mind, because at the age of 38 years old, a lot of things would have changed. One important factor is also on your loan. So the amount of a loan that the bank can actually allows you to loan up to, because that will also hinder your purchase if you do have something that you want to do after you sell your HDB BTO.
Actually, this question, what's your age at MOP, it actually links to the 4th question that we have, and we'll touch on that later. But as of now, I think our stand is probably like if you are age probably 38 and below, you still can consider the BTO route.
But of course, if your age are around the range of 20, 25 or below 30s, for example, we both agree that our take is actually to go for BTO first, because undeniably, BTO is a subsidized flat and it's definitely the route to go to, because you just start out working at this age group of young adult. It's more affordable. And of course, if you were to sell upon MOP, I think we still have a good timeline whereby you can still plan your wealth accumulation. Still a decent timeline, I would say. But let's say if you are upon the age of 30, then you want to go into BTO, maybe there are better alternative routes depending on what is your priority at the end of the day. Thirdly,
do you need a home urgently? This question we will actually also need to pose to us, because we have got clients also that circumstances in their home, they really have this urgent need to move out. Whether or not it's because they need their space, whether or not it's because of conflicts at home. This is also a question that we pose. Of course, if you need a home urgently, then the resale route would be the faster way to get, instead of having to wait for the BTO to build for like 2-3 years.
If you have a home to stay for now, whether you are staying with your in-laws, if you are renting, then maybe it doesn't make sense if you are renting because you are also paying so-called the money that you can actually pay for your mortgage, for example, right? But let's say if you have a place to stay like with your parents or with your in-laws or anybody else, I think that's perfectly fine as long as you do not require the home urgently. But let's say if you already have kids or you are planning to have one in the next 1 or 2 years' time and you know that the situation at the current place that you have might not be the most ideal in terms of scenario for you to have a good environment for the child, then perhaps a resale might be a better option in that sense. Coming to number 4.
What are your plans after MOP? So earlier on, the second question, I actually shared that the age of MOP actually ties up to the fourth question. Especially if you are a buyer who sees your next purchase or this current purchase as a stepping stone towards maybe the next better property, then we also have to consider what are your plans after MOP. Earlier on at the second question, when I mentioned about the age 38, the building time probably 2 to 3 years. Upon MOP, you would be more than 45 years old. This is where potentially you may get a lesser loan amount, your loan tenure will be shorter. If you have got any plans to move to a next better property or your current property purchase would be just a stepping stone towards the next one, then we feel that if you are above the age of 38, you probably would consider resale as the better option.
Putting aside all this, right, if you know that at the back of your mind, you are unlikely going to have another move, for example, this is your forever home, then I think it's perfectly fine for anyone to just go in the BTO route and find something that they like at affordable range and then just stay as it is. Why we are putting it across on this is back then when we purchased our BTO ourselves, nobody has actually ask us such questions on, what are your future plans? We do not even think so far, which is perfectly normal. But now that you already have the knowledge to know, right, I think it would be ideal if you all sit down and really think through and see whether, if this place that you are potentially going to get do you see yourself in the same house for the next 10 or 15 years? And if the answer is like no, likely you might want to do something else, then take into consideration like what we mentioned earlier on. This is the summary of the 4 that we have. Again, eligibility wise, we are looking at whether you are single or married because that would really determines the kind of house that you are getting at. Of course, for singles, you need to know that you only have a $7,000 income cap. You have to really go for a resale. One important thing is, I think we did not touch on earlier on, is the citizenship status. You must have a Singapore citizen counterpart.
Citizen.
Yeah, in order to get into a subsidized flat.
The age at MOP, if you are like in your early 20s, that you have already settled down, you've got your life partner, we feel that the BTO route is definitely the safest way that we can choose from.
But let's say again, if you are in your 30s already, please do bear in mind that it will actually affect the amount that the bank can actually loan to you to if you potentially want to do anything after selling off the HDB flat. Then thirdly, again, to summarize, whether or not do you need a home urgently, do you have any family planning that you have in mind? And then last but not least, what are your plans? Is this house that you're potentially getting into a forever home? Or you're intending to actually buy it to rent out a room, for example? Yeah, because recently we do have a client who is in his 30s. He actually wanted to consider whether he should go for a BTO or a resale. That's when we really sat down and understand his goals. And we realized that, as a single, he actually do have thoughts of wanting to rent out one of his
Bedrooms.
One of the bedrooms to actually earn some passive income. If that's the case, it's quite no-brainer to us. If you are going to a BTO route at the age of 35 years old, because there's no guarantee that the balloting is in your favor as well. And if you do get a BTO, you are only able to get a 2-room flexi, right? So that if that's
As a single.
Yeah, in this kind of situation, then our advice is go for a resale so that you can get it fast, find a location that you want, you get your desired renovation of the house that you want because you already purchased as it is. Your options are a lot wider. Whereas comparing to BTO, it's really depending on luck whether or not you get it first, and then subsequently is what kind of levels that you are getting. All this is also truly by luck.
So now there's really a lot of content out there, but we don't see much content touching about HDB. So we really wanted to address this because these are questions that we get from our clients, whether or not BTO or resale is a safer route for them. So with the summary of these 4 key questions, we hope that this provided you some clarity. And then, so we can look forward to our next series, because if we are looking towards to buy a resale, today's market especially, I'm not sure about you, but I personally also feel that today's market is very expensive. If you are going to buy into something that is expensive, then all the more we should be careful with our purchase. So in our next series, we will actually touch on how, as realtors, we are able to select a unit that offers you more protection.
Okay, see you in our next video.